Chris Russo, what a pleasure having you on the Rich Eisen Show. Thank you so much for your time. What's your best Bruce Springsteen song? Like, if we were to play Start Bench Cut, which is what we play here all the time, we're talking about music here because, let's face it, I'm not going to waste time talking with you about, like, what's the Bears going to do. On your...
if I had to... wow. There's a lot of them. I think probably Rosalita would be the one that I'd have to take, partly because it's the song that goes way back that I remember in, album number 2. So I would take Rosalita as my number. Ties That Bind I love as well. There's a lot of them, but I'm going to tell you Rosalita from Wild D in the Street, E Street Shuffle. I did a camp thing once when I was a camp counselor in 1980, and we had a talent show, and I had all the campers dressed as Springsteen's members, and we lip-synced Rosalita. So I will go with Rosalita in that song.
Wow.
How about that?
That is fantastic. Give me, I feel like having you on, there's so many things I want to ask you, so I'm going to just rapid fire if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Sure.
Where did Mad Dog come from?
Bob Raceman gave me that nickname back in 1988. I had just gotten to New York a year or so prior, and I was doing a show on WMCA, which used to be a legendary New York talk show back in the 60s. A lot of music, too, but, a lot of great talk show hosts came from MCA. Got a job there, and I worked weekends, 5 to 8, Saturday and Sunday. And Bob Raceman, who wrote for the New York Daily News and covered sports media, found me and gave me that Mad Dog nickname. So when I left MCA about a year, December of 88, I had the nickname a year or so before that. I went to FAN, which had just started, and then all the FAN guys, led by Don Imus, promoted the fact that we have a Mad Dog in the house. So Raceman to Imus to Mike and the Mad Dog. That's where that nickname came from.
Awesome.
Back in 1988.
All right.
You need a nickname. You need a nickname in sports talk radio, especially back then. It separates you from the pack, Susie, having a nickname.
I got to think of one for myself. Okay. Dog, Doggy, Christopher, Chris. What do you like being called?
Well, Christopher. Chris, that's my name. So I'll say Christopher. Doggy, I like. Christopher. Dog, I don't. Mad Dog is too official. Doggy, Stephen A. calls me that, so that shows a familiarity to it. Christopher shows a little refinement. Chris is a little too,
informal.
Christopher or Doggy are the two ways I would go.
I told you, Chris. I told you.
Yeah, but I said Doggy.
I told you, and I said, I'm not calling him Doggy.
Right.
It's just like, you and I don't have a relationship. I'd like to have one, but we don't have one. I'm not going to call you Doggy. I'm going to call you Christopher I'm going to have some respect. I'm going to say to you Christopher because I want to be formal.
They call me a lot of things. I had a nickname in high school. I went to a boarding school in upstate New York. I wore black patent leather shoes, so they called me Gucci in high school. So I have always had, for whatever the reason, I've always had a nickname. My whole life, I've had a nickname for crying out loud.
Well, they call me a lot of things behind my back, but I'm not going to say what they are here. Suzy Shuster on the Rich Eisen Show, in for Rich. Chris Russo joins us. Christopher Russo joins us, and we're so thrilled to have you. Stephen A. is a very old friend of mine back from the Fox Sports Net days. What's the difference between working with him and working with Mike Francesa?
That's a good question. Wow. That's a very good question. I think Mike is a little more reserved, and I think you have to prove to Mike that you are on Mike's level from a sports perspective. Stephen A. takes you for what you are. He understands that the embellishment of it. Mike can be a little cynical about somebody who yells a lot. Stephen A. kind of loves that. So I would think that the enthusiasm level with Stephen A. plays a little better for him than it would for Mike. I would think the intellectual level, not saying that Stephen A. is as smart as a whip, but the intellectual level probably works a little better with Mike. To be on Mike's plane, intellectually, sports-wise, that takes some getting. You got to know how to do that, and you got to match that, and that's not that easy. Stephen A., you got to match his enthusiasm and his delivery, which is a different situation. So they're two different little skill sets. Both are, you can have a lot more thoughtful conversations sometimes with Mike, and a lot more enthusiastic conversations sometimes with Stevie A.
What is the one sporting event that has caused you to be the most crazy, the most insane in your career?
Wow, that's a good. One specific sporting event? Probably the 90 Buffalo Giant game in Tampa. I thought that the Bills, after beating Oakland 52-3 in the AFC Championship game, I thought they would kill the Giants. And I went on and on and on at the Tampa Hyatt thinking that this game would not be competitive. I had the game early, 21-3. And then by the time Friday at 6:05 came, I had it 49-13. And that was the final that I picked. Now, Peter King, the great, just retired, estimable Peter King, had it 35-14 Bills. For some reason, my 49-13 in New York resonated a little longer. And then I sat in the back of the end zone, the opposite side of Norwood's miss, saying, as that game went on, I said, boy, did I screw this up. And Mike was close to Parcells, and Mike went to Parcells. You're not going to believe this, Bill. My dopey partner thinks that the Bills are going to score 49 on you. And Bill told him, tell that little ham and egger, there is no way I'm allowing the Bills to score 49 points. Bill was right. I was wrong. 2019 Giants, Super Bowl 25. A hell of a game.
Wow.
Suzy, a hell of a game.
I love it. Peter King joins us in the next hour, so we're back to back. You and I are lockstep with our admiration of him. What about the moment where you said, I am the luckiest guy in the world to be working in this job, to be being able to be myself calling sports?
That's a good one, too. Wow. When's the moment that I really felt very fortunate? I would say, I know this is going to sound a little weird because it just kind of occurred. I would say probably that first time a couple years ago when I did First Take. I did a First Take. I just went in there. It was January 2 years ago. Stevie A called me. I went in. I did 2 segments on Clemens and Bonds and why they shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, and something on the Packers who had just lost to San Francisco in a divisional game in the snow in Lambeau. The next day, ESPN called me, and a day after they signed me to a contract. That's freaking free at 62 years of age. That is fortunate. So I'd have to say that would be one. I think the other one would be the first day in 2003 when I did 2 books. And my first book that came out, Greatest Sports Arguments of All Time, when you write a book and the book comes out on a Tuesday and boxes of it are delivered to either your house, radio stations. I think that's important too. And I remember one year I went to go do the Today Show. This would have been probably summer of 2003. And I was doing the Today Show, and I walked by Barnes & Noble and the Greatest Sport and Fifth Avenue, and the Greatest Sports Argument book was in the window. I think that, I said, geez, look at that. Barnes, Fifth Avenue. I got that a stupid little book that I could care less about. That too. Those two I can give you.
And how about the moment in sports that has affected you most personally?
Well, I mean, I think it's probably Magic Johnson when he announced he had HIV. That was in 90. Mike and I had just started. Remember, he had a press conference in November that day at 4:00. They called the press conference that afternoon. This was not something that was, okay, Magic on November 4th is going to announce his retirement. They called that press conference probably in the morning because his health insurance came back and he had the blood disorder. And he had the press conference at 4:00, and Mike and I were on the air. And to be on the air when Magic Johnson is announcing his retirement from professional basketball, that to me was one of the most dramatic moments that I've ever done. To be on the air when that occurred. The other one that I think of, and this is a tragedy, we were on the air when Corey Lytle, with his test pilot, crashed his plane into an apartment building at 72nd Street and Park. That was a day of a Met Cardinal in '06, of a Met Cardinal playoff game, NLCS at Shea. It got rained out, and Mike and I were on the air all day from soaked Shea, and that accident happened, I'm going to guess, 2, 3 o'clock. And we had the we had all sorts of transportation. That was a very dramatic day. He had just pitched for the Yankees 2 days before that. And we had talked to him on the air because we yelled at him, and we had him on Monday, and this happened like on Wednesday. Those two, very, very dramatic, Suzy, very dramatic.
2 more minutes with Christopher Russo, unless you can hang out for a commercial break, which I might say to you,
I can hang on, Suzy.
Can you?
You're doing a great job.
But this is so fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, Mount Rushmore of media. You have to put some guys up there, or ladies. Who are they? And it could be TV, it could be print, any form of media. Who would they be?
You're gonna just sports media or
sports
all
media? You could, if you want to add Paul Harvey, go add Paul Harvey.
But I know I was going to add. I would add Howard, but let's
you
not
can add
do
Howard.
It from that. Let's just do sports, because I think that's a little easier. Cosell would have to be considered in there. I know this is going to sound crazy, and people are going to think I'm nuts.
Ooh.
Dick Young has to be in here. Dick Young is the first writer who covered a team in ways that you and I, Suzy, would recognize. The Dodgers in the late 40s, Jackie Robinson, he was very, very significant, had an incredible amount of impact. That's 2. Let's see. Boy, that's a very good question. I hadn't thought of that. That's 2. Now, this is personal for me, so I'm going to put Enberg there.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Because Enberg is he is a tremendous play-by-play guy, and I grew up with him. So I'm going to put Enberg there. Now, I'll tell you a quick little thing on Enberg. 08 or 09, I'm doing spring training shows for Sirius. So I go to the Peoria. San Diego's playing somebody, and I'm in the ballpark at 7 a.m. He was doing Padre games. This is at the end of his career. He was in that was their first spring training game on TV. And Dick Enberg was in the clubhouse at 7 o'clock in the morning preparing for a spring training game, Padres and Mariners, whoever they were playing. Think about that. Dick Enberg, who did 3,000 Super Bowls. I was so impressed. So I will put Enberg. You have to put Cosell in there for Monday Night Football. I will put myself. I'm going to put Dick Young. And although I'm not an Olympic fan, I got to put Roone Arledge in there too.
Beautiful.
Olympics, Monday night, I got to put Arledge in there. That's a weird crew. I probably would refine it, but top of my head, Suzy, those are the 4 I give you.
We talked about Brent Musburger before the break, and Dan Patrick has been very vocal about saying that he can't believe that Brent is not in the Hall of Fame. Brent is our guest tomorrow, old friend of mine. Can you think of a reason why he's not in the NFL Hall of Fame?
It's an absolute disgrace. I've screamed about that as well. Good job by Dan. He's been all over it recently. That was a great CBS documentary that they did on the NFL Today show during the Super Bowl in the pregame. This is a guy that formed the NFL Today. And the fact that he does not have that Roselle Award is an absolutely mind-boggling scenario. Now, listen, Brent was not a great sharer. Brent wanted to do everything. You know, he wanted to do the NCAA. He wanted to do the NBA. He wanted to do studio. He wanted to do the Masters, the Indianapolis. So he probably, rubbed a few people the wrong way, because it's a lot of the times it's about Brent. And I think that, that didn't end well at CBS. They got rid of him in 90 because, he was sort of so empowered at the network that they just wanted to spread some of the workload around. And Brent did so much. That's probably got a little something to do with it. But other than that, I don't know, Suzy. I mean, that to me, Berman's won the award. Andrea Kramer's won the award. Irv Cross, now African-American, very important, but he won the award. He was on a show. Cosell won the award. Go look at the list of people who have won that award, and somehow Brent Musberger 1975, and he was on there live. You are looking live at all these games. I mean, that really is hot. Now, listen, probably didn't make a ton of friends. I'll be the first to say that. But as far as his ability and how good he was at what he did in the studio, and he was a pioneer and now that they all do it, they do 5-hour pregame shows. So Brent, to me, that is an absolute Hall of Fame should be embarrassed that Brent Musberger is not in there. And Dan Patrick, who has been screaming about it, you are 1,000% correct, is 100% right. He's got to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm with you.
Yeah, Christopher Russo here on The Rich Eisen Show. We are talking about Brent Musberger, and I'm sitting at The Rich Eisen Show radio network desk. I'm furnished by Grainger with supplies and solutions for every industry. Grainger's got the right product for you. Call clickgrainger.com or just stop by. I wonder if it has to do with gambling, because he spoke about gambling long before the NFL got
it's not,
in
maybe,
bed with it.
Maybe, and then he worked for VEASAN, which was an issue with gambling too. So that might have a little something to do with it. I don't know if Brent probably, again, he was omnipresent on that show. He ran the roost. That probably's got something to do with it. It can't be an oversight, because enough people have screamed about this for a long period of time, lately by Dan, and everybody knows that it's a disgrace that he's not in there.
All right, we'll go into rapid fire mode just because I have so many questions, and I know Christopher over here has one as well.
Yeah.
The next 5 years of Bill Belichick's life are going to look like
head coach again. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. Somebody will take a run at him after this year. I was surprised he didn't get a job after this past season with either Dallas, even Atlanta. I thought Washington would be perfect, but those programs decided to go in a different direction. There will be an owner next year, after somebody has a big-time disappointing year, that's going to want to win a title quickly. Belichick can still he's still a great coach. I think you'll see him again on the sideline. I really do. I'd be surprised if he's not.
Chris, what do you
Doggy,
got?
you made a lot of headlines with your half a gummy and a 10K on Colorado earlier this year. What's the best bet you've ever made?
I'm going to tell you right now. Well, I'll give you a couple. One, I bet the Giants in 10 at 13-1 to win the World Series before the year started, and they did. That was a good one. But how about the plays that I made in Vegas before this year's Super Bowl? I went to South Point. I made 5 plays. Suzy, Chris, are you ready for these? Here they are.
I'm writing them down.
McCaffrey, over 4.5 receptions.
Okay.
Justin Watson, and I was going to bet MVS, but they didn't have him on the board because he had missed practice and I would have lost. Justin Watson, over 16.5 yards receiving. That's number 2. I bet the Chiefs on the money line. Okay?
The plus
on
130, something like that?
It was 114.
Okay.
I bet it was something else in which I won. Northern Kentucky and Oakland in a college basketball over 2 days before that. And yes, I'm a degenerate. And then here's 2 that unbelievably I got. A Chief 4th down conversion, which they got in OT, and it had to be done not via penalty. And number 5, Mahomes, over 1.5 touchdown passes.
Yeah, buddy.
Last play of the game. Now, that, Suzy, let me hear from you. That is an incredible Sunday at the Super Bowl. That's pretty good.
I'm trying to put my jaw back in my head here because it dropped really hard.
5 for 5.
Really
5
hard.
for 5, baby.
Oh, baby.
We got 2 minutes to a hard out. I'm in a panic. I want to ask you about who the Bears are going to take with the first pick, but I'm almost more interested to hear on your thoughts on the Kennedy assassination because I know that's one of your favorite topics. So,
I love it.
You get to go.
Rob Reiner, who I had on when he did this great 10-part series, which is airing on, you get it on your podcasts. I had Rob on for an hour, early December? He was great. And if you think, or if America thinks that Lee Harvey Oswald decided to go up on that book depository thing by himself and shoot the president of the United States, because whatever the case, if you think that, you are absolutely nuts. I used to think mob Rob made me think CIA, so some sort of combination of CIA and mob. And I could even make the argument, as Reiner did, that he may have not even been on the 6th floor at 1-something in the afternoon when Kennedy was shot. How about that?
That's fantastic. We got 30 seconds to a hard out. Quickly, Bears are taking.
I think they're going to take Caleb Williams of USC. The GM can't afford not to. If he keeps Fields, trades the pick, Fields has a midland career, and Williams turns out to be Mahomes, he will never live it down the rest of his life. He will go the safe route and take Williams out of USC and trade Fields for a couple of draft picks.
Really appreciate you coming on today. Loved having you.
You got it. Knock him dead. Chris, you too. Suzy, knock him dead.
Listen,
love you, Dougie.
And I want to just say to you, it is such an inordinate pleasure to have you. We're on Roku only now. We just went to break for radio, but you get the drift. But I mean, it's just so much fun having you on because, look, we all listen to sports radio all the time. But like, I like asking questions that are a little bit more interesting because I always tell everybody, like, you can listen to your take on the Bears pretty much anywhere, right? But I'm still interested in things like, do you think the NIL is, screwing up college sports forever?
Yeah,
I'm a
yes.
former ABC sports reporter, so, I lived college football for so long. Do you think the NIL has spoiled players?
Yeah, I think it's a major mess. I think it's very difficult to build your teams. They bounce around. I understand why. If coaches can leave, why can't the players leave too? Coaches have to pay a penalty if they leave, but this is a mess. College athletics, it's a year-to-year thing right now. In basketball and in football, a couple guys don't play. You hear what Patino said? He had 2 players as freshmen who he didn't play, and if he did, and if it was now, they would have left NIL, and those players, Peyton Silver, and somebody else, helped them win a championship 2 years down the road. You can't do that today in college basketball or football. It's a major problem. I understand why the judge and, if coaches leave, the college athletics is a cesspool. I get all that, but it's hurt the sport. There's no question about it.
I really appreciate your time. I hope you will come back again next time I'm in the chair. This has been fantastic.
Anytime.
And also send my love to Stephen A.
I sure will.
Thanks a lot.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.